A famous philosopher, Marshall McLuhan, said, "Environments are not just containers, but are processes that change the content totally." Does that concept hold true for animals too? Let's figure it out using a study on tropical and temperate birds. But before that, let's cover some background information related to the scientific study. First, let's talk about life history theory. Life history theory seeks to explain how natural selection and other evolutionary forces shape organisms to optimize their survival and reproduction in the face of ecological challenges posed by the environment. Characteristics of different species that help explain this theory include clutch size, age of maturity, growth rate, and longevity.
Another important background concept is cellular metabolism. Cellular metabolism refers to all chemical processes occurring inside living cells. The oxygen consumption by cellular respiration and non-mitochondrial respiration are the examples of cellular metabolism. There are two kinds of metabolic rates, basal and peak metabolic rate. BMR is the amount of energy used up daily when a body is at rest. PMR is the maximal rate at which body consumes oxygen. Climate, rain variability, and temperature are influential factors that affect metabolic rate. In the study, researchers examined the variation in life history traits of temperate and tropical birds and its effects on their cellular metabolic rates. The tropical bird has a longer lifespan and produces fewer offsprings. These offsprings develop and mature later in life compared to the tropical birds. The researchers hypothesized that due to the differences in their life histories, tropical birds would have lower rates of cellular metabolism than temperate birds.
To examine the relationship between cellular metabolic rate and life history, the researchers compared the metabolic rate and proton leak from the dermal fibroblasts of the 17 tropical and temperate species. These species were phylogenetically paired and had similar body sizes. The names in red represent the tropical birds, and the names in black represent the temperate birds. These birds were collected from common nutritive and thermal environments, with the temperate birds from Ohio and the tropical birds from Panama. In the following graphs, 17 paired birds are represented, where each pair contains one temperate species and one tropical species. Graph A represents the difference between basal oxygen consumption of tropical birds and temperate birds. Values below the dashed line at 0 represent cases where the tropical birds had a lower basal oxygen consumption rate. The normalized basal cell consumption was 29% lower in cells of the tropic birds compared to the cells of the temperate birds. Similarly, graph C represents the difference in maximal oxygen consumption. The maximal cellular metabolic rate, or PMR, was 35% lower in tropical species compared to temperate. Cellular metabolic rate is most strongly influenced by temperature and mean annual rainfall. High BMR and PMR is associated with high latitudes. This is usually the region where the temperate birds live and exhibit high rates of mortality. On the other hand, low BMR and PMR is associated with the semi-tropics, where birds have low reproductivity and high survival rates. Graph B represents the difference between proton leak of tropical birds and temperate birds. The proton leak is cell type specific and correlates with metabolic rate. As seen in graph B, the proton leak was significantly lower in cells from tropical birds compared to cells from temperate birds. Proton leak is energetically costly for animals. Tropical birds with reduced BMR have reduced proton leaks, whereas temperate birds have higher BMR and thus a greater need for thermogenesis and a greater proton leak.
Based on the findings, the hypothesis is supported that cellular metabolism rate for tropical birds was significantly lower than that from temperate birds. Birds from common phylogenetic lineage but different life histories have physiological properties at cellular level that allow to have different cellular metabolic rates. As previously mentioned, tropical birds have low metabolic rates, while temperate birds have high metabolic rates. Since the mortality risk of a temperate environment is high, the fast pace of life or high rates of metabolism and short lifespans are favored by natural selection. Life history traits allowed birds to cluster in ecological spaces and finally better enable them to adapt to specific environmental pressures like climate changes.